So starting with the third preseason game, the starters looked not that great. Offensively, it was very sloppy. You had mental errors. You had there were sacks, multiple of them, which I think is more of a byproduct of the offensive line not working with each other that well, or that often. Because you're talking Riley Reef hasn't really been in the active lineup. Boone was out in Seattle, so there is that. You got Elfline in there now, so you got a rookie working with veterans that we don't know how much he's really worked with. So that could be a byproduct of the sacks and the lack of running room Dalvin had in that third preseason game against the Niners. The defense is a little bit more concerning to me because that is the calling card of this team. The corners and the secondary specifically concerned me a lot. Waynes was getting thrown around by Garcon wherever he wanted to go. It was not a good look for Trey. Alexander, I thought he played okay for the most part in that game. You wanted to see Rhodes not bite on both Rhodes and Harrison Smith kind of bit on the play action on the deep pass to Goodwin. So that's a little bit of a concern there. Like it just seemed like a lot of sloppy errors that you don't usually see this defense make. It was a little uncharacteristic. I don't think this is necessarily a sign of things to come, but it still does need to be corrected really, really fast. And that's really it for the third preseason game to me. I don't want to get into all the backups and all that, but kind of fast forwarding to today now with all the cuts and all that stuff. We had a few players cut today. We had Josiah Price, Jabari Price, Nor Davis, the linebacker, corner, Trey Roberson, Moritz Boninger from Germany, which I keep on reading that's done. Like there's no more Moritz Boninger. That experiment is over and done with. So that was more of a waste of a pick than anything, kind of like a feel-good story that just never turned out. Chunky Clemens, a defensive tackle, probably never really expected to make the roster in the first place. More of just a camp body almost. This one disappointed me a little bit because I was really pulling for this guy. I like Will Sutton, but he was released today. Sam Brown, which if you saw him in that fourth preseason game, just that he just did not play well. This does not surprise me. Sam McCaskill, a defensive end, wouldn't be surprised for him to end up on the practice squad, or Freddie Tagola out of Arizona this year. He's a rookie, and he was an undrafted rookie. He's a guard, although being 6'8", it's a little odd to be a guard. Terrell Newby's another one that was released that I wouldn't be surprised to see end up on the practice squad. Then you have Nick Truesdale out of the Arena League, one of their guys there. And most notably, of course, TJ Clemmings. TJ had a very up and mostly down career with Minnesota, and this doesn't surprise me at all, even though he did show improvement during the preseason when we moved inside to left guard, as opposed to being outside on an island at left tackle. So that was the cuts today, and then there's the other thing that happened today, which was the trade for Tramaine Brock. Now, Tramaine Brock, that one's a little interesting because we don't know if that necessarily means Alexander isn't working out as well, or if that's Trey Waynes. So we just know they needed corner depth in general, so at worst case scenario, this is a very good fourth or fifth corner due to Terrence Newman being there, depending how the age does with him. And if he starts to decline, I'm assuming Tramaine Brock will very quickly jump up that. And well, that's also assuming Trey and Mackenzie Alexander play well enough to not only start, but to continue to start over the veteran. But in general, I would expect him to take over the nickel duty almost immediately. I would assume you're looking at Waynes as your number 2 guy. Rhodes is going to follow the number 1 receiver everywhere. And then you have your nickel guy in Tramaine Brock. Newman and Alexander being your reserves. And then up top, you're looking at Sendejo and Harrison Smith, which is very solid. Once again, we're looking at maybe the two weak points being Waynes and Sendejo on this team, because Sendejo, although he did improve last year, he's never really been that great of a coverage safety, but he has been reliable in run support. So there's always that factor with Sendejo that we all know, and I don't. Which brings me to another point. I keep reading that TJ Ward is a guy that could potentially get cut or traded. So, and I read one thing that actually said if they can't find a trade partner, they will cut him, which usually means no one's going to trade for him, because why would you trade for a player that is going to get cut? So that would be an interesting guy, even though he's older now, so he's more of a almost a hybrid linebacker role. So maybe that's more of a third safety off the bench, maybe at this point, if they were able to get him tomorrow. And honestly, I don't think that would be that bad of a thing to have, because I still think he could compete with a starting spot for Sendejo if push came to shove there. So yeah, like I don't think that would be bad at all. He's definitely going to provide reliable coverage down there, at least enough to the point where we can probably move Harrison Smith around, which to me is a very key thing. If you can move Harrison Smith around, this defense becomes so much more dynamic. And I think all of us can agree with that. So, yeah, there's that. The offensive side of the ball, I still wouldn't be shocked to see them add another offensive lineman out of all these cuts, or maybe I don't know about a receiver. We might end up trying to trade Jarius Wright. That still wouldn't surprise me. It seems like for the past year and a half now, they've been trying to rid us of Jarius Wright. And I think that's just because of how much he doesn't do on special teams. He's mainly just a slot guy. So the more you can do, the better. Obviously, we obviously have Diggs and Thielen, who can both play outside and slot. So with them being more effective than him in the slot, it doesn't really help us to have Jarius Wright, especially since they paid him a little bit. So if we can trade him off for anything, almost, it feels like that could be a better deal for us than having him on the roster, just because now we got they're hoping Treadwell comes on. Floyd is going to be at the very least decent, I think. I'm obviously, with him being suspended the first 4 games, I wouldn't expect him to have 1,000 yards or 12 touchdowns or something crazy like that. But you are certainly looking at a guy who can definitely play the 3rd or 4th receiver spot on this roster. Which brings us to the offensive line in general. I think when you're talking about the other iffy part on this offense, which you have, which I don't think anyone expected this to be a 1-year fix. I still don't. Remmers, I wouldn't be surprised, is gone after this year, but I also wouldn't be too shocked to see them flip him inside to right guard after this year and find a new right tackle. As where if Riley Reef plays, even like in Detroit, he played very solid and average at left tackle, but I think they just wanted to get a more high potential guy over there, and that's why you saw Taylor Decker go over there, move Reef to the right side. He struggled on the right side, which then obviously he came over to us for $58 million with a 2-year opt-out, though. 2-year opt-out, so if he struggles over there, it's not necessarily the end of the world entirely, but it's certainly still not good. So I don't think anyone expected all-stars when we kept, really good offensive linemen do not hit the free agent market, and that is going to stay that way probably for as long as the sport goes on. And that's just how it is. And you have to just do what we do with it. Elfline is the guy that I really think is pretty much the guy. Like, he will be able to man the center for a very long time, I think. He is very physical at the point of attack. He maybe doesn't have as much as athletic traits as you would like, but he does have the wrestling background, and he's very, very strong. Like, he understands leverages, and he's just able to bulldoze people, really. So with that in the middle of the offensive line, that then creates the ability to actually run up the middle, which we saw countless times last year with Zimmer on the 3rd and 1 every single time. Zimmer sometimes is too stubborn with this. Like, it didn't work then, but he's probably still going to try to do it just because it will. Well, now we have a better offensive line with Berger flipping over to right guard and then Elflein at the center. We should be able to push people. Assuming Elflein is the starting center, of course. Easton, there is Easton, who I think I think he could play okay there. I just think Elflein could definitely, at least, like, if he's not past him yet, like in terms of just knowing how things work and playing, basically, if he can't play better than him yet, within a month or two, I think he will be playing better than Easton. So I don't understand why you don't play Elflein now. That's why I'm kind of penciling him in as the center of the line already. And so Boone on the left guard, which I thought Easton played better at left guard than he did at center. But Boone will still be the left guard, I imagine. Unless something weird happens there. So unless he gets traded tomorrow, we're probably looking at left guard as Alex Boone. That's how I kind of look at it. And so you have a backup center guard in Nick Easton, who can fill in for either spot, although I would imagine if Elflein got hurt, we're looking more at Berger sliding back into center, and then you have Easton at right guard. So that's how I would think that would work. Rashad Hill, I think, has played a lot better than I expected him to. He looks very average to me, but that's pretty good for a backup lineman. Like, if he's just average, like if he's not someone who's an eyesore at left tackle, that's usually good for a backup. So, with that being said, I wouldn't be, like I said before, with Remmers possibly moving into right guard after this year. If everything is kind of what they expect to be, which I imagine is kind of average for this year, I imagine we're kind of looking at the possibility of Remmers moving into guard and then flipping Rashad Hill out to right tackle at the beginning of 2018, but that's looking way far into the future. And as of right now, we gotta pretty much just focus on the week 1 regular season game against the Saints, which includes Adrian. So it's gonna be an interesting one, and I will probably I'll have another video tomorrow, probably with other roster cuts and moves and all that stuff. And then maybe in the coming days, we'll probably have a preview of that New Orleans game just to get the ball rolling again, because it's been a while. Farewell.